as well as Dr. Laurel Anderson, who is department chair at Palomar Community College for child development and education. And Escondido is a beautiful little town. I say little, it's actually, I think, quite large, but has a small town feel in North San Diego County. And there are in the elementary school district 17 elementary schools, 5 middle schools, and 1 intermediate school. The district has a little bit over 14,000 students, and the community as a whole is 52% Hispanic, Latinx, 35% white non-Hispanic, 6% Asian, 2% Black African American, and 1.3% American Indian. So you definitely have a diverse student population that's reflective of what you see in the community. And I just have to say that what Escondido Elementary School District is doing in Palomar College in this collaboration just absolutely had me so excited that thought this is out of the box thinking that we should bring forward to this community of practice, because there are a lot of good ideas out of this that can probably be replicated in different parts of the state. So with that, I am going to hand it off to Amy.
Hi, everyone. As Shive said, I'm Amy Lawton. I'm the Director of Classified Personnel at Escondido Union School District, and I'm going to see if I can figure out how to share my screen, not something I'm always great at. So give me a moment. And then Laurel, are you?
I'm right here. I'm here. I will be jumping in with Amy to share from Palomar College, as this is our partnership. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about this amazing partnership we have with leadership from Palomar College. It's been such an amazing opportunity. And so as I'm getting into it, I also want to share that this was originally the brainchild of my assistant sup of HR at the time, Dr. John Albert. And he heard about something that a superintendent out in Florida was doing. And he said, well, why can't we do that? And so we did. So we created sort of a joint logo between Escondido USD and Palomar College. Sorry, I'm not good at these slideshows. But so the Palomar Paraeducator Program, essentially, with our partnership with Palomar College, we were able to support our paraeducators in taking college level classes to earn their AA. So the paraeducators work in our classroom, supporting the teachers, supporting the students. They're earning a salary, they're earning the benefits, and we're paying for the cost of them taking classes in the evenings, scheduled around their workday through Palomar Community College. And the district pays for those expenses, the tuition, the textbooks. We provide an iPad and keyboard to all of the participants. And this is a way to really improve our recruitment and retention of paraeducators. And it's also a way of supporting our paraeducators by providing this training, as some of them have been with us for a long time, but others are much newer to this type of role. So the benefits of the program are that we get to bring in paraeducators, retain our paraeducators again with a full salary, full benefits, retirement, start paying into that CalPERS pension system. They get to further engage with the community, help out with our students, spend time with them, help them instructionally, and they are able to earn that educational degree and earn that general training and knowledge. And this has been a really great way to invigorate our paraeducator community. So the idea behind the program, this really started because we had a dearth of paraeducators. And I'm sure there are a lot of other school districts who've been experiencing that as well. Shive mentioned we're in northern San Diego County, inland. We do have the 17 elementary schools, 6 middle and intermediate schools. Our student ADA is just over 14,000. Our student, population, it's 85% around in there, free and reduced lunch. Primarily Spanish-speaking families account for almost half of our students here. We've got about just over 1,000 teachers, almost 1,000 classified employees. And when all of our positions are filled, our paraeducators for all of the programs comprise about 1/3 of the classified workforce. And specifically, our SPED paraeducators comprise 25% of the classified workforce. And so, of course, we were going through the difficulty with the nationwide staffing shortage during the COVID recovery, but also we've been seeing these general trends of, decreased student enrollment throughout the state, but increases in IEP needs and special education services for students. And so this has really been, impacting our district, both with, a lack of special education teachers and also paraeducators. And so I think the fact that we were already experiencing that type of trend, but then, coming out of COVID, it was exacerbated even more, where we had almost 100 paraeducator vacancies within our special education program, and we just could not find enough people to support our students. And so this is really what got us thinking, what can we do to, enhance our recruitment and retention opportunities? And so that's what got us thinking creatively about how to find a solution here. So how we worked the program, it just started just over a year ago. August 2022 is when it first went into place. So EUSD paraeducators from any program, it doesn't just have to be the special education program, so it could be, early ed as part of state preschool, etc. So any paraeducators can sign up. So far, we haven't had to turn any away. We've been able to take in any paraeducator who's interested. And also prospective paraeducators, as they're going through the process to become employees with us, as soon as they essentially fully clear and have their start date finalized, they're able to start the program as well. And of course, it's better when they can start the program at the beginning of a school year, but we've had a few kind of jump in a little bit late with plans to catch up later on. The Palomar classes themselves, they're conducted in a cohort model, and they're built around the paraeducator work schedule so they can fit everything in. And so one of the things we really wanted to do is, even though we know online classes are very popular, they're very flexible, we wanted our students to come together in person as a cohort. We wanted them to be together in a classroom, taking class after class after class, and really develop that teamwork and that family atmosphere together. And so we hold the classes at our district office right here in Escondido on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons from 3:30 to 7. And the Thursday lessons are more of an open collaboration and classwork time where they can get extra support, but it's not the same as the Tuesday classes where they have the more general lecture. But by coming together twice a week, they're able to support each other in working through classroom assignments. They're able to work on group projects together. And because we really wanted to prioritize that type of atmosphere, we worked with Palomar to have an instructor come out to our location and provide those classes here 2 evenings a week. One of the things we tried to think through at the beginning is, what is doable for these paraeducators who, some of them are quite young and they're, very new to college. Others have, are further along in their life. They have families, they have children. How do we make this work? And we thought, well, one thing we want to do is have them just take one class at a time. Each class takes, either 4 or 8 weeks to complete. And then once they finish that class, they move on to the next one. That way, they're really just focusing on one at a time, just to have that extra peace of mind. And again, we pay for the cost of tuition. We order the textbooks for them. We issue them an iPad and a keyboard to use to complete their assignments. And we also were able to bring in a couple of noon supervisors and paraeducators in the evenings on Tuesdays and Thursdays to watch school-age children while the participants are taking the class. And that was one really key thing that we realized we had to make sure was in place, because we were really just trying to think of how do we remove these obstacles that would otherwise prevent our paraeducators from being able to participate in this type of program.
So just a little background. Again, I'm Laurel Anderson from Palomar College, and I'm the chair of the Child Development and Education Department. And John contacted me and said, was concerned about the number of paraeducators that they needed in their program. And the first thing I said was, well, if you're going to if you want to get instructors, there has to be a buy-in. And if you want to keep them, they need to know or have the tools to do the job that they're doing. And so we started the idea with giving the paraeducators the tools that they need to be really good paraeducators. So we have a school-aged assistant certificate in our child development department, or under the child development umbrella in our department. And it is set up for people working in school, after school, before school, and paraprofessional or paraeducator programs. And we chose a teacher or our instructor from Palomar, who is also an educator in the pre-K age group. So she is working with paraeducators in her daily work. So she knows exactly what the focus should be. So year one, we focus on completing that school-age assistant certificate, where the students get information about development and for school-age students, some curriculum writing, the overall child development, as well as some sociological coursework and guidance courses. And so that little package comes together, and they, at the end of the year, have this wonderful certificate. Then, and it also aligns with the California State School Age Permit. So, ta-da, they get both a certificate from Palomar College and a permit from the state. In years 2 and 3, we work on helping them go the next step. So we have under our education umbrella in our department, the University Studies Elementary Education Preparation Pathway, where they start taking their general eds. And so in years 2 and 3, we have aligned general education instructors to what our child development instructor did in year 1. Go to the Palomar site, teach these general education courses that align with the elementary education preparation certificate and degree, and facilitate.
So one of the other things we started doing at Escondido USD a couple of years ago is we started holding hiring events, because again, at the time we were coming out of COVID, we couldn't find people for a large number of our positions. It was a really tough time to find enough classified staff. And so one of the things we started to combat, that problem is we started holding these monthly hiring events at our district office, where candidates could essentially, they would come in off the street, not having any background with our district, just advertising heavily throughout the community. They could come in, and we had all of these rooms reserved and all of these staff available to help them. And so they would come into a room and check in, and we would set them up with an iPad and help them submit their EdJoin application, whatever they wanted to apply to, especially if it was noon supervisor, custodian, paraeducator, nutrition services. And then we would have other rooms set up with all of the pieces that we needed to get done in that process in order to finish it completely in that one day. So we are a merit system district. So of course there's the extra hurdles we have to jump through with that, but we were able to essentially have raters set up in advance. So we would have an interview room for the noon supervisors. So after they submitted an application, we would check to make sure it went through the system, send them immediately to the interview room for noon supervisors. Same thing for nutrition service assistant. We even had a room for people where we our nutrition director was leading the food handler exam. So we had a lot of things going on. And of course, the central classification that we were really focused on is paraeducator. And so we were able to modify the testing process for paraeducator, where they only had to take essentially they had to take the NCLB test, and then they had to take one of their very brief multiple choice tests instead of a scored interview, because we wanted them to finish the test and immediately have a score as soon as they walked out of the room, so they could next go into a hiring interview with a couple of our principals, just a very quick 10-15 minutes. So basically, we were trying to figure out, how do we get them from this station and then immediately to the next one and then immediately to the one after that. And so we've been doing this for almost 2 years now with these hiring events. It's going like clockwork. During the summers, we can go out to school sites and we can hold the events there to get to different areas of the community. And so one last thing we've been able to do with these hiring events, which has been so cool, is we've been able to bring in the vendors who do the pre-employment physicals and the fingerprinting, and they do that right here on site. And so it's a one-stop shop for hiring, and this has been vital to getting more paraeducators in the door. And by advertising the P3 program, that's also really made a huge difference. And so going out into the community and bringing people in who maybe wouldn't have been as comfortable applying for jobs on their own and then coming in for scheduled testing. A lot of people, if you're a merit system district especially, you probably know that between the time someone submits an application and then is supposed to come in and test, a lot of them drop out. And I think many of them are kind of overwhelmed or intimidated by the process. But this way, they're here, they're in the building, they're told you don't need anything, just bring yourself and a photo ID. And we coach them through the process. We encourage them, and we keep up, that stamina, keep up that excitement for it. And so in continuing to broaden our collaboration in the community itself, is this past spring, we went out to 2 of our community high schools, and we were able to bring the hiring events to them. We started at, say, 4 o'clock after school got out. We had advertised it in advance. We had a couple of information sessions leading up to the hiring event dates where we talked to a group of students. We had great support from the guidance office at those 2 schools, where the guidance coordinator helped us by finding students who they thought might be very interested in this type of program. And so we were able to tell them about, hey, this is what we're going to be offering. We're going to bring this whole event to you. You can apply, you can interview, we'll offer you a job that day before you leave. We'll put you through the pre-employment screening, and then you'll know that on August 15th of the following fall, you're going to have a job, and you're going to be able to sign up for this P3, and we're going to help you register, and you're going to be able to start earning your AA. And so it was a huge hit. We brought pizza, that was a big hit as well. And so by really getting out into the community like this, we had this amazing response to it. And so we were able to hire about 23 graduating seniors between those 2 schools who signed up, were made job offers in the spring, and then started in August 2023, 2 months ago. They started as new paraeducators for us. So it's been amazing to bring in students from our community who went through our elementary and middle schools and are now coming back and are working with our new elementary and middle school students. And we've really been able to, expand that type of representation in the classrooms. It's been really cool to see.
Amy, can you tell the story of the student who one of the really fun stories about the graduating senior?
Yes. So we had at one of the high schools, we had a conversation the day of the event, and the student, she was still just finishing out her her last couple months of high school at the time, but she was telling us about how she had never thought she would have this opportunity to take college classes. She and her younger siblings were living with their grandmother, and her grandmother needed help taking care of the younger ones. And so she had originally been planning to work, fast food or something like that. But then when we came and presented our program, she realized, hey, this is an opportunity that I could take advantage of. I can live at home. I can help my grandmother, raise my younger siblings. I can make a salary, I can get health benefits, and I can actually start taking college classes. And that wasn't something that she ever really thought was in her future. And so when she was telling us about this, she was tearing up, I was tearing up, Dr. Albert at the time was tearing up. It was really an amazing story. And as we go out to, events at the high school, we're doing them, in the fall, we're just going out to like back to school night to share with parents. And it's like, hey, for graduating seniors who don't know what they want to do or who aren't ready to go away to college yet, this is a great opportunity. It doesn't mean they have to, be a paraeducator forever. It doesn't mean they have to, have plans to be a teacher one day, but this is a really good place to start out if you don't know what's next. Having all of these rich benefits, starting to pay into the CalPERS system at an early age, learning to, have that connection with the community by helping students, and also coming out of your shell by being able to, learning how to communicate professionally at this young age, and taking college classes all at once, with those college classes not costing you anything. I mean, this is a really, really good place to start if you don't already have another plan. So yeah, that story always touched us.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Amy. That's so heartwarming.
Yeah. So Laurel and I wanted to share a little bit about sort of how we got started on this, because there was a lot behind it. And we had to, start out just figuring out, first of all, is there going to be interest in this type of program? And so we checked with our paraeducators who were already working with us at the time. And, not surprisingly, in the long run, looking back, we see that lots and lots of people said, oh, yes, I would love to do this. This sounds amazing. And, we were asking as part of the survey, what are the main stumbling blocks? Is it, the cost of tuition? Would, paying for just, let's say theoretically, if we had been able to pay for just half of the tuition, how much would that impact your ability to be able to participate? How much does childcare impact you? So just asking, what are these stumbling blocks? And that's what helped us plan further for them. And then, of course, with, the 40 or 50 people who initially said they're interested, that ended up dwindling down substantially as far as the number of people who actually followed through the first year, which is to be expected. But it was a really good starting point for us to at least see what that feedback was. And then another thing we had to figure out at the time is also, okay, we've got all of these students who are ready to, start at the AA level, but then we have all these other paraeducators who are out there who maybe they already have an AA or have a BA, but they're interested in the concept. And so we basically had to tell them, you know what, hold off for now. We're very interested in continuing this idea. We need to put this on the shelf for now, and we'll talk more about what future steps could be in the future. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. We decided that even though the area of paraeducators where we were so desperate was specific to special education, we decided we wanted to include all paraeducators, because any type of paraeducator could really benefit from this type of program. And that would also be a huge retention incentive that, was really important to us. But we did limit it to only the paraeducators who work with students in the classroom and not the other classified staff. So we partnered up with Laurel and a couple of other people from Palomar College. We held some joint information sessions for participants, talking them through some of the details of, how does this work with my work schedule? What happens if I've already taken some classes toward my AA? How do I know which ones I, wouldn't have to take in the future. And so we were able to sort of collaborate and tag team on figuring out what those main questions were. A big piece of it was also for the sake of Palomar College, we had to figure out, the dates and times and locations for the classes so they could get that set into their schedule. And there was a lot of behind the scenes work that happened there as far as figuring out what class needed to be taken when, all of the sequencing, what classes had to be fit in at some point, including intersessions. And so Palomar did a lot of work on the back end to get that all planned out. We had to align the childcare plans for school-age children. That was one of the challenges that at first we weren't sure if we'd be able to overcome, but we were able to find some new supervisors and a paraeducator who were willing to work, pick up a few afternoon/evening hours twice a week. And so that's actually gone so much more smoothly than I would have anticipated, but it's been great. We don't have a huge number of kids in there. We've never had more than 10 at a time. And so that part has been going really well. And again, it's only school age. So, kids usually like ages 4 to maybe 12 at the very high end. And so, we survey after survey, information session after information session, we over time, we were able to get to the core group of participants that were really going to follow through with the program. And they were able to, where applicable, provide their actual transcripts from previous colleges over to Palomar, who evaluated them to figure out, every so often there was a student who maybe didn't have to take a certain class and would have a month off and then would just jump back in the following month for the next class. And we tried to provide the participants with lots of support through the registration process, which sometimes just consisted of, hold on, it's okay. I know you have this stumbling block. We're going to let Palomar know. We've got this seat reserved for you. Everyone's expecting you. This opportunity is not going to disappear just because you're having this registration difficulty. So a lot of collaboration was happening behind the scenes there as well. So financially, we were very lucky that we were able to get a lot of support from our senior leadership in the beginning, because that was absolutely huge. And so, of course, we had some extra funds coming in after COVID, just dealing with a student learning loss. And so we were able to take a small part of that had to do with, retention and recruitment of paras and we identified that as the initial funding stream just to get the process going. And so that's how we actually got started. The timing just was fortuitous. And so we were able to make that part work when we were getting set up. There was a lot of communication that had to be done with the billing office over at Palomar. And it was a little challenging because, once students are 18 and going to community college, the college can't necessarily share with a third party too much information because these are adults now. And so we were able to figure out kind of a workaround where we provided the information about which people were employees that we expected to participate. And we could confirm for our end which people were, permitted to register. And then the billing office knew how to bill us directly for those students from registration. And of course, there were blips where sometimes students were told, oh no, you're not on this list. You need to pay for the classes yourselves. And so just by communicating with us, we could then go back and communicate with Palomar. And they were really great. And over time, we were able to iron it all out. So the first year was a little bit more challenging as we were just getting off the ground, but this past fall, all of the registration went much more smoothly because we had already kind of gotten our process down. And then when we determined the level of financial support over time, we recognized that we actually could pay for the entirety of the tuition. And as a third-party payer, since we're not reimbursing the employees directly, CSEA didn't ask to bargain the effects of this program. They're just very glad we have it. And they, kind of are hands off with this. They just say, keep doing what you're doing. And they're happy to see it go on. So as far as the collaboration, again, it's been so huge, and the leadership at Palomar has been amazing. And, they're one town over, so it was really easy to see that, hey, this is the college we want to partner with. We already had a lot of people in our community who were very interested in Palomar. It's, a really popular college in this area in North County, San Diego. And so as we began collaborating, the leadership at Palomar has been so supportive. Our governing board at the school district was fully on board. They wanted to see us do anything we could to get more paraeducators in the door. And so that part actually went much more smoothly than we had originally anticipated, but it was fantastic to see everyone pull together for this program. We were able to identify a college instructor. Her name is Carrie, and you'll see her in a minute. And she was willing to come out and lead a large majority of these classes for the first year of students for all of the child development topics. She's been so fun, and the students love her. We worked with Palomar to figure out what the minimums and maximums of the class would be, of course. And so our first year, we ended up only having 10 people really follow through and be in that first cohort of students. And so then we ended up paying a little bit more on top of that just to, account for the fact that an instructor was coming out directly to us. But in our minds, that was well worth it to make this program work. And we collaborated with Palomar to figure out the schedules, the timelines, which course would take place when. And we're still finalizing that for next year, which would be the third year. And it does take the full 3 years for them to earn the AA. And we're holding monthly meetings between EUSD and Palomar just to continue with the planning process and deal with any concerns that arise over time. And so that part has been absolutely amazing, and we really appreciate the partnership. So I'm going to let you hear from Carrie. This is the teacher who leads the child development classes. And so last year she led the classes for just about the entire year with our first cohort. And now she's starting our second cohort of students. And so she's putting them through those same childhood classes.
Hi, my name is Carrie Diaz, and I have been the instructor for the child development courses in the P3 program both last year and this year. I'm also a pre-K to 8th grade teacher, so I was immediately excited about the possibilities of this program. The course content is so relevant to their everyday lives and to their careers. But not only that, their experiential knowledge that they're gaining every day can then be applied to the coursework. So our courses are engaging and discussions are lively, and I really see the goals and motivation from the students. Another really successful part of the program is the cohort model. I've personally witnessed the level of support grow over time, both with students helping each other with their academics, but also with life, right? They really care about each other and they become a really tight-knit group of people. And finally, this program benefits everyone, from the students that they're working with each day to their own themselves as they grow as professionals and see a path ahead, and to the schools that would like to retain their paraprofessionals as well as watch them grow and become credentialed teachers. And finally, for myself as the adult educator, again, these courses are lively, they're fun, they're engaging, and it's just really been a joy.
So last spring, Cohort 1, as they were finishing their very last class, we had a year-end ceremony to celebrate the progress they had made and to really shine a spotlight on what we had been able to create so far. It was so exciting. We had it right at our district office, and we had a lot of participation. Our school board was there, all of our cabinet was there. A lot of people came from Palomar College. The college president was there. There were deans there. I mean, there were a good 7 or 8 people who showed up in high levels from Palomar as well. And we were all there to cheer them on and applaud them for being that initial group to make their way through this program. It was just an amazing thing to see. So now this group of students who completed their child development coursework in May, this year they started taking their more general education classes like English classes. They'll have math coming up in a while and those types of things. And so they're continuing to work together as different instructors come to the district office to lead those classes. And here are just a few pictures of some of the students from, the different activities they were working on last year. And as you can see, they're having lots of fun. They are celebrating with food, always a great way to share. And so it really is a lively and collaborative atmosphere.
And I'm going to interrupt just a second, Amy. I was talking with Carrie about some of the pros and cons of the program. She couldn't emphasize enough the fact that this cohort becomes a family, and she watched this group of 12 to 10 students become this really integrated group who were supportive of, who some of them didn't know each other prior to the course, but then became like family, as you can see. And so that's why I shared the picture of their food. Additionally, she talked about the larger group that she has this semester with cohort 2, and how she has the whole breadth of students coming in and to share from ages 18 to 50, and they are too becoming a beautiful family, a cohort of people who are wanting to become better at what they do and better humans, and become again a family of sorts that can support one another through this learning process. So that these pictures were to show that component.
Thank you, Laurel. Okay, so on the next slide, we have another video. This is Michelle, and she actually gave a short speech at the ceremony this past spring. She's part of our initial cohort 1, and we want to hear from her for a moment.
My name is Michelle, and I have worked for Escondido USD as a paraeducator for 3 years now, and I'm in the very first cohort of the P3 program. And I've been taking classes through Palomar College starting in August 2022 as part of this program. And the first year of classes centered around child development, which was so helpful for me, and education, and helped me tons with my job and also with my family life. And right now I am completing the Chicano Studies class as part of the second year of the program. And I started the program because I always intended to get more education, and this was a wonderful opportunity for me to take, and very timely. The program provided so many opportunities to make sure that my path was open to accomplish all the goals that I had. And I love learning about children, learning about child development. I love teaching. I love being a mom of 5 kids. And so this program has helped me in all of those goals. And I am looking forward to becoming a teacher through this program. Thank you.
So, oh my gosh, isn't that so heartwarming?
Yes.
Are you all applauding? I hope so.
So from our cohort 1, we had a lot of students join that program the first year who had been with the district for a long time. And then as we saw cohort 2 begin this year, we definitely saw some changes where we had some longtime employees join in the cohort, but also we had a lot of new people. So we have actually more than tripled our number of participants from cohort 1 to cohort 2. So in cohort 2, we have 34 students participating. It's been amazing. 21 of them are the new high school graduates that we stole this past spring when we went out to do hiring events at their high schools. And then a few others are, 3 new hires that just came in over the past few months. Some are somewhat new hires who started with us a year ago. But then we also have a handful of longer term employees, including one who's been with us as a paraeducator since 2004. So, there's really, participation across the board, which is, really wonderful since it's so representative of what they're going to see, throughout their working lives as well. And so we're going to have you see, these are all, you'll be able to tell from the videos, they're all recent high school graduates. They just graduated in May and they're quite young, but they're all very excited about the program.
Hi, my name is Gavin Stewart, and I'm in cohort 2 of the P3 program. I graduated from Escondido High School back in June of 2023. And I began to work as a paraeducator at North Broadway Elementary School. And in my child development class, I am currently learning about different developmental models that'll help build learning strategies for children. And I started this program because I saw it as a great opportunity to propel my future career as a teacher. And what I like about it is how flexible and easygoing the class is, and the ability to interact with other peers and the teacher is a really great experience. And then this program fits into my future goals because it's going to help me understand children better, especially if I want to become a teacher or go into a field that requires education. Yeah.
My name is Valeria Saul, and I'm in cohort 2 of the P3 program. I graduated from Orange Glen High School in June 2023, and I began working at Eller Green Elementary School in August of 2023. I started this program because at my school I saw the opportunity and I just took it because I really want to be a teacher abroad, so it would help me in my future career. What I like about this program is that I get to work in the morning and then later on I get to take my classes, so it's easier for me and it fits into my schedule. This program fits into my future, especially because I want to be a teacher, so it'll help me and prepare me for that career.
Hi, my name is Luis Martinez. I am the cohort 2 of the P3 program. I graduated from Orange Glen High School in June of 2023, and I began working as a paraeducator at Felicita Elementary. I'm currently learning about early child development in my child development class through Palomar College. I started this program because it was an idea pitched to me. And not only does it fall into what I need to learn, but it's also helping me understand a little bit more about children and the space and environment where I'm working at. What I like about this program is the flexibility and the teacher, and not always having to feel stressed and being concerned about timing and when to turn in assignments, because I know the teacher could work with us on that. This program fits into my future goals because I'm always learning something new about how to take approach on situations about children and what I can do best to help children learn and what's most efficient to them. And yeah.
They're so cute. I'm trying to teach myself to stop calling them kids because they're adults now. They have a career, and you might be wondering what the principals think of these, students who are, still so young and how things are going as they're, working in the classrooms and being one of the responsible adults. And it's actually been going great. I've been hearing so much positive feedback from the principals, and these students, they're in a place where they can really be molded to take on this type of responsibility. They are, they're showing up on time every day. They have a great attitude. They're always willing to learn. So it really has been going well. And one of the things Carrie was just saying the other day is the fact that they're kind of, partly kids and partly adults in that way as they're becoming, more mature in adulthood, they're also still able to relate to the students. And so, we've really been seeing a lot of successes there. I know I've been talking for a long time. I apologize. I only have 3 more slides left. So some of the successes, yeah, it's hard to believe that a year and a half ago, we were still really just planning out and thinking, is this program really going to work? But it's really come to fruition. I already mentioned the huge increase in the number of P3 participants and the support from senior leadership. And a huge thing to highlight is we were able to hire 120 special education paraeducators for the entirety of last school year, which, if we didn't have constant increases in positions, being added on an ongoing basis, and if we didn't still have, turnover, all of our solutions, would be there, we would have enough paraeducators, but it's never the case, even though this has dramatically helped with our recruitment and retention. And then we've been able to hire another 18 just these past couple of months, and some of them have already joined P3, and a couple of them just started with the second class because they were hired a little bit later on. We've talked about, the evolving relationships with the community, with the schools, with the college. And so, really coming together and having this, sort of this pipeline and the collaboration and just the communication and, sort of becoming a bigger family has been amazing, because now we're seeing how all these different organizations can play together this huge role of supporting, our students who are in elementary school and our graduating high school students, and then also our, current paraeducators who have a lot more life experience, and how they're all working together to sort of shape what this future looks like in the community. And so it really has been amazing to see that, having this program in place, it is this great option for students who didn't already have other plans. So I mentioned, last year when we went in the spring, all of the students who were brought in to start hearing from these information sessions, they were already set to graduate in just a few short months, and they had no other plan specifically in play. They hadn't gotten there yet. They weren't sure what it would be, and this provided them with a really, really great opportunity that otherwise, they wouldn't have had. They didn't have plans to, go to college right away. And so this year, I mentioned briefly, we're, getting out there to those schools in the fall at a couple of the schools, telling parents, hey, we have this program. Hey, if your kid maybe isn't planning to go away to college, or they don't know what they want to do yet, this could be a great option. Start thinking about it in advance. And we've gotten some really great feedback throughout the community for that. And then just working in general with Palomar College has been amazing, because we're, having this symbiotic relationship. We're able to talk about all of the, the great things that Palomar does, and, how supportive they are of their students. And Palomar is able to, include us, if they're having a job fair, we can go there and we can talk about, paraeducator positions, even if those individuals at the hiring events, even if they already have an AA degree, we're, the next great place for them to land. So,
Amy, if I can interrupt for just a second, I also want to just state that, of course, because they're Palomar students, they receive all of Palomar services. So they can, anything that any other Palomar student receives, tutoring services, health services, all of that are covered as well. So the relationship goes beyond just that time for our instructor being at the Escondido Union School District site. The students are Palomar students as well, and so they have all those resources available to them as well. I wanted to stress that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So we did have some challenges along the way. Some of these we've already talked about. Even though we had so much senior level approval, for some reason they weren't able to get enough laptops for the P3 participants, but we got keyboards to pair the iPads. So that ended up being fine. We, communication allowed us to work through third-party billing challenges, and just a little extra planning during, spring breaks that didn't align with Palomar spring breaks to make sure they still could access the building. We started out with noon supervisors providing the childcare in the evenings, and then we went on to include some paraeducators who had experience working in our autism program, because some of the students whose parents participated in P3 needed that extra support. So we expanded in that way. We had to start a communication effort with the parents who were attending P3. So we knew in advance how many staff members were needed on each class, because that tended to fluctuate a lot as far as how many of them were bringing their children with them on any given night. And sometimes, we would need to provide extra reminders to the students about registering in advance, because once they get going with the classes, they think, oh, I'm already done, everything's set up. So just little pieces in there. I mentioned before that the in-person classes, we knew that would be considered a limitation with some people, and that not everyone would be able to participate, but we really thought it was worth that extra effort for those who were able to participate in the model by coming together and building that family feel that Laura was talking about. We're currently brainstorming about providing a little bit of extra support for some of the participants who need, some extra help with improving their writing skills. So that's been an ongoing conversation. And of course, in order to get through the whole program, it is a 3-year commitment where they have to also continue working with us as a paraeducator. So of course it's a lot of work, but the enthusiasm we've seen from these students, it has been amazing. And so I have no doubt that the large majority of them will make it all the way through. And then one of the challenges that we haven't been able to overcome is we don't have the capacity to provide childcare for babies and toddlers. So for those students who have, or potential P3 students who have very young children, they'll have to wait for another year when their kids are a little bit older, school age, before we can provide that childcare. And so next, we are looking beyond the AA level, and Shive Jones from the county office has been such a huge support in this area because we're looking to see, okay, what happens after the BA? We've started to talk with a few different colleges who might be able to offer some kind of program with a blended bachelor's degree and teaching credential. One of the things we're looking at is, of course, special education. Those who are willing to earn a credential in special education, those are our top priority. So we know that, going forward, what we don't know yet is, are we also going to support those who want maybe, a multiple subject credential, or maybe just math and science. So those are some of the things that we're looking at. We do know that if we're able to expand to offer a blended bachelor's in teaching credential, we still want to maintain this cohort model. Even if some of the classes are asynchronous and, fully online, we want to find a way to maintain this family feel for the students, because we feel like this has been one of the things that's, continued to propel them forward and make them feel like they can really do it. At some point, we're going to go back to those participants who already have an AA and might be ready to participate in a blended bachelor's in teaching credential. We don't know if we're going to incorporate a different program that's specific to just those who already have the BA and only need the teaching credential. And one of the things that we're almost positive on is anyone, if we're able to make this next phase of the program work, anyone who goes through our program and earns the SPED credential, we are going to guarantee them a teaching position with our district immediately after they complete that credential requirement. And of course, the level of financial support we might be able to provide to the participants, that's not something we know yet. There are a lot of different things we're looking at. And one of the many areas where Shive has been so supportive is, really exploring what these different grant opportunities might be. Of course, there's the Golden State Teacher, there's the Pell Grant, which, the large majority of these P3 participants would certainly qualify for. Shive has been telling us great things about the residency grant for students as they're doing the student teaching. And so we're, partnering with the county office as we explore these further options. But, really that, if we're able to take this next step and we're able to support these students from our community in becoming teachers for our community, it would just be incredible, an incredible way of, further enhancing our diversity and really, representing our community with this, community pipeline of students to teachers who are then supporting our students and being role models. And so we're so excited to see what this next step might look like. And it's been such a huge motivating factor for a lot of our paraeducators, and we've really seen the evidence in a lowering of our turnover rates for paraeducators throughout this program. So, Laurel, what else would you like to add?
I just want to say that so much of it, I think the success is involved with how much we collaborated as the team from UCSD and Palomar. It was just wonderful to have John come in with such excitement and looking to see how it was that he could find the funding. There was a question about that. Brian Lucas asked a question about the rough cost per participant. Can you help him with that? Amy, do you have that information?
Honestly, I don't. I wish I did. I should have made sure I had that with me. Our secretaries here really kind of handled the logistics of that. But part of that to note is that because of, the grant that was available, Shive was able to help us with the costs for reimbursing some of the tuition for that first year of the class block, the child development classes. Shive, you're probably able to just kind of speak at that without any preparation.
Yeah, Brian, I can tell you we received an invoice from the district. I want to say it was around $7,000 maybe. So it was really minimal cost. And because this is early ed units and we have the early ed teacher development grant, we were able to use those grant funds to cover this cost.
Yeah, the great thing there is we didn't even know that when we first set out, because at first we were just, paying that, flat out from district funds. And then we found out a little bit after the fact from Shive that there was this additional option. So that was a fantastic surprise. And as far as, the technology use, the iPads, we do actually already issue one iPad to each and every paraeducator throughout the district. So, that was an expense already built into our staffing costs. So it was just, it was just the extra cost of the keyboard. And then as far as the classes, some of the classes have a traditional textbook, which again, we would order for the group. And then other classes have more like online resources. So none of these costs have been in any way overwhelming. We're waiting to see what that next level could look like with costs when it comes to the bachelor's/credential programming. So we'll see.
Well, I would like to open it up to any other questions. Feel free to use the chat or just come off of mute. And I have to say, from all the research that we've done, just on our end with diversifying the educator workforce, a couple things that really stand out to me is that you guys are doing a cohort model, which is very, very powerful, especially when you're talking about many students whose parents are second language learners and may not even be have come up through the American education system. So that I always talk about this idea of social capital, and the district is actually part of that social capital for these, I want to call them kiddos also, but for these individuals, which is beautiful. The other thing is when you look at the model where you're bringing on students from the high school, you're talking about having employees who are from the community and who have some of the shared lived experiences as the students that they're serving. And that's also very powerful. But gonna open it up to questions. So like I said, feel free to come off of mute, or if you'd like to type a question in the chat, you could do that too.
I just want to say, this is Laurel Anderson again. It is a win-win-win-win-win-win-win situation. And I can't emphasize that enough. Everybody wins. The students and the schools, the Palomar students who are Escondido Union School District employees, the Escondido Union School District, Palomar, the community, everyone wins. It's just been unbelievably heartwarming and and fun to see how the collaboration can make such a difference. There's a ripple effect. So go ahead with questions. I'll stop talking.
Aman, do you have a
Yes,
question?
I
One-
do. My question is around the financial sustainability piece. I know you've gotten to a point in which you're able to pay using a mixture of like general funds as well as grant sources. What did the process of creating the funding strategy and landing on something that's sustainable for years to come look like? I think that's our biggest challenge at SFUSD. It's really thinking we have some infrastructure, lots of buy-in, but
Mhm.
grants right now and people are starting to feel some anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, when we were first starting the program, the number one priority of the board across the entire district was, getting enough staffing, both classified and certificated, for our special education programs. And so essentially for them, it was a matter of priority where they essentially said, no matter the cost, you have to make, something work. And so we were actually at one point, we were trying to negotiate with our classified union about, hiring incentives, retention incentives specific to paraeducators, but they were very, all for one for all. If you're going to do it for paraeducators, you have to do it for, school office managers and payroll technicians. So, the funding that we were willing to negotiate for that purpose, we actually ended up using for this instead. Now, do we have a more permanent plan for 2-3 years from now as far as where those funds will come from? No, but we do have a very clear directive from our board to find the funds to keep it going. Of course, with us being, more of a medium-sized district, I can definitely see where that would be more challenging for a very large district, especially if you had a huge turnout of potential participants. At one point, we thought we might have to do kind of a mini application type process where, asking, how this fits into the goals of the students, checking their attendance as they, worked as paraeducators with us in the past. Maybe they have to work with us for 2 years to qualify. Luckily, we didn't have to put those in place. But if we were more financially constrained and had a lot more participants trying, that would probably be one of the approaches where, hey, we can fund, one class cohort each year, and class cohorts top off at 40. So we're going to accept the 40 most qualified people, and that's all we can fund. So sorry, I don't have a better response than that.
No, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And there is a comment in the chat from Anthony. Thank you. We often focus on classified staff in the teaching pathway, but starting with paraprofessional recruitment and training is brilliant, and the Grow Your Own model pulls from the community to invest and represent. And the financial sustainability, I imagine, is one piece, but most of what I heard, Amy, and Laurel, was also about the relationships and the support and the connection in that whole cohort model. And so looking at, again, barriers for educators of color, what we see is not getting the tap on the shoulder or not having the support to understand the whole system of getting a credential and completing one's education. So you guys have opened that door for them, which I think is brilliant, as well as with these early ed units, for those who decide to get their multiple subject credential, they're now going to be TK qualified, and that's huge too.
Yeah, a lot of the P3 participants, especially those who just came from the high schools, they're the first generation that's actually participating in college classes. So their families might not know as much about, these are the tricks. This is how you apply for financial aid. This is how you decide what college to go to. This is how, or even this is how you should go to college, so those messages aren't necessarily as clear, partly through the community. And so by making this option easy to access, I think that's really been helpful. And as one of the students said in the video, he said he's not worried about falling behind because he knows the professor will help and be able to, point him in the right direction of getting caught up again. They don't feel like they're going to kind of just fall out and, not, they feel that ability, like they're going to actually be able to complete the program.
There's a buy-in from both Palomar and Escondido Union School District to see this as a success. And so we have top support. Our president of this college is all about it. And the vice president of instruction as well. So we have a lot of support for our instructors as well as our department, and all the behind the scenes stuff that needs to take place. And so Palomar wants this to be a success, and Escondido Union School District wants it to be a success. So that in itself, those two things together make such a difference in how we're moving forward. Everybody wants the students to be successful.
Yeah. And we don't know how many of them will eventually want to go on and become teachers, how many will be paraeducators with us for the long haul, how many will maybe, move on to a different career path down the road. It's hard to say, but knowing that we're giving this option, first of all, has been, really incredible to watch as these students, develop and grow. But also, like, if you think about it with your, with your own classified staff that you have, you probably see the same thing we do, where we have lots of paraeducators who have a bachelor's degree who would want to become a teacher. But that huge stumbling block for them is they can't support themselves while being a student teacher and not being, paid for that period of time. And so that usually becomes the main differentiator between who's a teacher and earns a livable salary and who's a paraeducator and doesn't make a real living wage. And so, moving on to this next part of the, the program that we might have as far as the bachelor's and credential blended program, that's one of the key things we're trying to look at ways we can address that.
I am just extremely impressed at how this program has and continues to eliminate barriers at so many levels. Even navigating EdJoin or fingerprinting or any of that at the very beginning, and then course registration for college, financial aid, all of that stuff is another layer, and then moving into hopefully the BA plus a credential. It's very impressive, because when we hear from the field in terms of we're testing or we're kind of creating all of these barriers for potential candidates to the point where they just say they say forget it, I'll choose a different career. So the fact that you are just totally chopping a lot of that down and supporting these students and students, but young adults, is just extremely impressive, and is only going to be just a solid model for the greater field if folks are able to kind of create these partnerships with local universities.